Guys, welcome back to another episode of SynergyTalks. Happy New Year. We're glad to be back on the air with you guys. And today we're going to have a great conversation about digital printers in the dental lab industry and the dental practices.
But before we do that.
Yeah. There you go. Get hydrated. Get that voice all good. So we're not only going to talk about what we think the proper fit for certain brands are in the industry, how it evolved over the years, what I or maybe Milos thinks is a good fitting printer for the practitioner themselves. The realization is as you look at this industry, digital technology is going to insert itself not just more into the dental laboratories, but also into the practice themselves. And there's a place for it. I know other labs or other laboratories will disagree with us as practitioners want to get more digitized. But we do believe that there is a certain extent of restorative that can be done in the practice and keep the larger, more complex stuff here in our manufacturing facilities. So we do pride ourselves in Synergy and helping the practitioner understand what the proper fit is, what systems work better in their office, what they can probably accomplish for faster restorative for their patients, and then let us handle the other cases here. So Milos, you've been obviously in digital for quite a while now. I know you've played with a bunch of different printers. But a quick question for you. Do you have any idea when the first printer was introduced in the industry?
I don't know, I would say 2000s.
So believe it or not, just like when we were looking into some data with digital technology and how we were shocked with cerec and how it came out in the 80s, the first printer was actually introduced into the dental business in the 90s, early 90s.
Oof.
So
I don't think I've heard anybody talk about printers in the 90s.
I don't think anybody talk about it, digital in general. Think about how we walk in some offices today, and believe it or not, scary enough, some laboratories today that aren't even digitized yet, which is shocking. It's almost like saying you're walking into a dental office that's still taking conventional x-rays. Funny thing is I was visiting offices a couple months ago, and I made that joke. And they did still have one of their locations that was not on digital x-rays, which is scary. But
you
true.
Say you were sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, right? You're still dealing with the liquids and the machine to develop those x-rays. It's shocking to me. But in saying so, I mean, Stratus and Bago Medical were some of the...
Stratus is,
the leading forefront of coming out. It's crazy when you look at the industry today on how much of a presence do they really have compared to other... what I would call mega brands or maybe disruptors in the industry. But real quick, why don't you talk a little bit about, your first printer, what you print with, what you like, what you don't like. We'll take it from there.
Yeah. And just to add to what you were saying, for a little historical context, 3D Systems was one of the companies that held a lot of patents on 3D printing. And so back in 2009, between 2009 and 2011, I started getting interested in 3D printing, and I saw the advantage of our lab utilizing it, all the problems that we inherently have with stone, which we've discussed before. And around that time, this company came to the forefront called Formlabs. And they had the first printer release. It was called the Form 1. And then soon after that, they released a second revision called the Form 1 Plus. The Form 1 Plus is the one I actually bought with my own money. It wasn't the lab that I worked with because I was so interested in it. It ran me like $3,000 or so. Which
back then was a pretty significant investment compared to other things we'd buy in the lab industry,
exactly.
Right?
And so I started playing with it. And it was still a rapid prototyping company, which means it was a 3D printing company, but it wasn't really doing dental. It was just coming to the forefront. But slowly, dental labs started to utilize it because it was somewhat affordable to get in, and it would save them so much time when it came to model work and processing. Around that time, 3D Systems sues Formlabs.
Really?
And they go in the legal battle.
Wow.
And so they eventually, after going back and forth, basically Formlabs' idea, from my understanding, is, I believe there's a documentary on it too. If I know, I'm going to list it in, if I remember, I'm going to list it in the description. Formlabs basically wanted to democratize this field and say, you got to release some of these patents so that all these other guys can start do all this 3D printing technology to kind of like open up the field. And they settled. So 3D Systems basically allowed them to do it. I don't know if on the back end there were payments or royalties, however, but they basically let him do it. And from that point on, Formlabs was one of the first companies that sort of democratized or made 3D printing affordable for many labs.
Oh, absolutely.
It was an entry point into the field. That jump-started a whole bunch of other competitors, which we're going to go over, and it brought us to where we are today.
It's so, I remember when I was a field sales rep, when I first started in this industry, wet behind the ears, and I had a couple of laboratories that had 3D systems, ProJet systems. They were more of like an injecting technology versus like the light curing or dipping. And they were okay, for the time. They kind of served the purpose for those early integrative laboratories that integrated into the digital world. But, when it was spraying the waxes, if it wasn't heated up enough, or there was a lot of failures and there was a lot of inconsistency to it. And there was a lot of downtimes. I had a laboratory in Staten Island, young guys that were really motivated for, getting into digital technology. And this was probably in the like 2003, 2004. And I just remember every time I go to visit them that the printer was down a lot more than it was up. And again, it's crazy what Formlabs has done to this industry and how much evolution has come along the way and how much more consistent it was, and it kind of corresponds to how the infrastructure of intraoral scanning has evolved, right? When it was very new in the industry, you were really just doing single unit restoratives. There wasn't a real purpose for needing a model. Now that we've brought in removable, right? We look at our facility today that we do over 97% of our restorative digitally. Most of the models I think we print are for two platforms, right? It's for removable, right? And that's probably 90% of the models we print. And then the last part of it is for our larger cases, where there's a full mouth rehabilitation,
verification
for allonx. But our single unit restorative or our multi-unit bridges on preparation, I think we're doing 99% of that modelless.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really interesting to see how the industry is evolving and how all these other products, how there was waves, right?
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you before I forget. So then that's interesting that you say that, because I want to just mention the very first materials that became popular in the 3D printing space. So the number one was model material, right? Everybody wanted to get rid of stone models.
100%.
But then people started getting ideas. Well, wait a minute. Night guards are made by hand. They have to inject all that acrylic and do it. Why can't we just design night guards? So then the night guard resin became very popular. And then we started utilizing castable resin, which means instead of going and waxing patterns out of wax, teeth out of wax, and then, investing that, we could just design the tooth, 3D print it in such fine detail. It's what the jewelers used to use as well. And then we started to do a temporary crown resin, then the denture base resin, then the denture tooth resin, and now we have surgical guide resin. So there was this, as people started coming up with more and more ideas, companies started to cater to that, and all they had to do is just revolutionize the resin. And the next step became the speed and reliability, which
100%.
About,
yeah. And it also goes to the value, right, of the added value of what it is. There's not many laboratories you find today that really want to cast the restorative. There's a big push in the industry now, not only for printing more removable restorative, not just necessarily dentures or the teeth, but also looking into printing flexi. And I know there's a couple major companies in the industry that have diligently been doing R&D to try to really perfect that. But then the next huge thing is printing zirconia, which, zirconia has become one of the leading restoratives in our industry. There's a lot of waste to that material when you mill it. Although the milling machines have come a long way and we get great aesthetics, you barely have to touch the restorative now. It's literally sintering and staining, glazing, and sending it out the door. And even in a lot of scenarios, the zirconia has evolved quite a bit where you barely have to even stain it. It's just glazing it and sending out the door.
That's the real story of zirconia.
Right.
It's not necessarily the machines that milled it.
100%.
It's the evolution of the material
100%
over the years.
100%. Yeah. And when you look at all that now, it's saying, well, how do we even perfect it even more? How do you get more of an accurate fit? How do you take the variable of shrinkage when you cure zirconia, or how do you get the variable out from the burrs or the access of the machine? And then the last part of that is the waste, right? When we had waste with metal, you used to either melt it down and recycle and reuse it. But zirconia now, whatever's left in the material-wise in that puck you're throwing it away, because there's only so many crowns or so many bridges you can mill out of that restorative before it's useless. It's exciting to see what the next few years will bring. We have beta tested a zirconia printer in this industry, in this facility, that unfortunately the printing quality is phenomenal, but the aesthetics of the zirconia just
very dull looking.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when you look at the industry today, when you looked back, when you first started to as the industry evolved in like maybe 2015, 2020, 2021 to current, what's your preference in printing and why?
So it depends. So if I want an easy to use machine that doesn't need to give me like crazy output, throughput, or speed, but just to be a regular output, small, reliable machine, I would do Formlabs all day long. Especially now with the introduction of the Formlabs 4B, this machine is just incredible. If I wanted to do a large scale production, we've used Rapid Shape from Straumann, right? That's been a very reliable machine, I would say. We tried a number of other machines, but we've tried Carbons. We can talk about the Carbons, 100%. The Asigas, all the printers. The main flaw of most printers, I think, it's reliability.
Right.
It's we can deal with speed issues and maybe some inaccuracies here and there, but when it comes to we really need it to run all the time. And so in that sense, I always thought that the Carbons were very reliable printers. But there was other things with Carbons that we were having issues with, and then we can get into that. But I would say for like in-office solutions, I think the Formlabs would probably be, especially the new 4B would be great.
Yeah. I like, so when you look at it, I think when you take a analysis of the industry, I think the most popular in-office printer today is probably Sprint Ray. But I think that a lot of the industry has not paid enough attention to what Formlabs is doing. So when Formlabs and Sprint Ray first came to the industry, Sprint Ray was much faster in producing the restorative. I think they were both very accurate for its time, but Sprint Ray beat it out in speed, and obviously in an office, speed is important, right? You have the patient waiting. You might be doing an ortho model for doing a clear aligner. You might be printing now. They could do temporary printing. So you want that speed and obviously accuracy. But now when you look at it with the new 4B, the speed supersedes, I think, Sprint Ray quite a bit. Yeah. And I'm thinking about how does it fit in the practice, right? What's the, being a practice VP of operations for a smaller DSO quite a years back, I'm always thinking about what fits better in a practice, right? And another thing I love about Formlabs is how the material comes in a cartridge. It self-dispenses. It's just a cleaner, faster, now the consistency of the quality. They have their rapid model print material that prints within 50 microns. I think it's averages 100.
Also, the error correction, if you insert a cartridge with this resin, but the tank is filled with a different resin,
it knows immediately. It's intelligent,
yeah,
right?
It's very
so DA error, right, or any human error, it rectifies that. But it has the materials, I think, that fit for like ortho models. I think they're rapid print material. I think, what was it, a tray in less than
15 minutes.
Yeah, or less, right? And then they just launched a new high accuracy model material for dies. I don't see the practice using that as much unless they have a technician on site and they're doing more complex cases. But we love it. And then now their new 4BL, I mean, the much larger platform. They've gotten very competitive in their resin pricing. I really do think that in the next few years, you're going to see a lot of market share taken up by Formlabs, which was well deserved.
Well, let's talk about all the other printers that we've used as well, because they also had their place, right? Yep. Our ambiguity towards Carbon, or talk about Carbon, Gears, and like all these other Asiga, for example.
That's a great point. So let's start with Carbon, and again, we're a non-biased channel. It's not that Carbon or Formlabs or Sprint Ray gives us anything to talk about them. It's really the trial and tribulations and the education we got on the streets from these. And we've invested in all. We've literally had every printer that he just listed and some, either in this facility or currently in this facility. One, because I think we're kind of nerdy in that for the R&D aspects of it. But also, on Milos's side, he's always looking for the best quality printer or the best quality material to be able to give our clients the best experience. And then obviously on the business side of it, I'm always looking at return on investment.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were a big carbon facility. We had 2 M2s, a couple M3s, and we were an advocate for them. We would Milos used to lecture for them. They were at the time the only printing solution out there that could do Dentsply bases. They had the specific ultra clear key splint material that came out really nice. And really, when you looked at it, lab owners would be like, "Oh, you're crazy! You're spending X amount of dollars per year on lease, and we're not going to throw out those dollar amounts on the channel." But at the end of the day, it was quite expensive on a lease. And if you didn't utilize the printer, when you amortize the cost of the lease versus the reduced material cost, if you didn't use it, it didn't make sense. When we were using it, absolutely made sense. But as these printers evolved, whether, back then it was a Vision Tech or Sprint Ray or Carbon or Rapid Shape, the printing companies, I think, started to wake up to it saying, hey, not only do we need to make a reliable printer, we should make a reliable printer with a cost-effective material.
Right.
And when you look at it, the cost of what they sell, whether it's, Formlabs, and I'm not going to keep, Formlabs, although, I'm falling in love with them. When Milos first came to the facility, he was like, listen, we got to get a Formlabs. I was like, they're kind of, small, and it's not really for a production facility. And I heard they're really not that fast. But, I fell in love over the past 2 years because of how much development and how much they've really evolved and understand the industry. But now, with their new 4BL, which we were great. We were a facility that did do the R&D.
Which has a plate just about this big.
Yeah, I think what you should do is maybe Milos will throw a little picture in the bottom of the screen here to show you what the plate size is. Beautiful size plate, really rapid, fast printer, especially with their fast print model material, which we use for all our dentures that we produce in the facility for validating whether it's a millable, flexible, or a printed immediate denture.
And now they just released the open mode.
Yep.
Where you can basically pay a fee. It fully unlocks your printer. You can use all third-party resins as well.
Yeah. Oh, they released that finally?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah. So I mean, it just, they really understand the industry. They have their own manufacturing for material, and they're doing great things. I really think as lab owners, as practitioners, it's a definitely a business to pay attention to. We run 3 of their printers now. We absolutely will be extending our 4BL platform in the near future. And I love it. I really think it's a great printer. I think return on investment, when you really evaluate the investment in the initial printer, and then the whether you're buying a liter or a 5-liter bottle, great pricing. It really works out. And I think it's going to knock carbon out of the industry, unfortunately.
For sure.
Yeah.
Second, Asiga.
Asiga. Yeah, absolutely. So we do have Asigas, and I got to tell you, we had a lot of growing pains through that.
Yeah.
We were on the hunt of finding a solution for printing our denture bases, and Asiga was the next printing system in the industry that got associated with Dentsply, right?
Can I just say a quick analogy? Asiga is like buying a Ferrari and then finding a plastic cup holder in your Ferrari. The hardware is great. It's built like a
robust,
tank.
Right?
Robust. All the components are great. And then you get this tray that...
their original OG tray.
Yeah,
they've improved it since that.
I know, but those were
when we first opened, we were like, what is this? It was like cellophane, right? It looked like we could have went to the grocery store, bought a cartridge of cellophane and a little bit of plastic and made the tray ourselves.
Yeah.
So there was growing pains there. We did a lot of R&D with that as well too. We have evolved. It has evolved, I would say, not we evolved. It has evolved quite a bit, where we print all our key split now and all our Dentsply dentures on it, and it's became a really reliable system. Yeah. You could buy it from many different distributors. We just happen to get ours through Zon Dental. I know Oregon and a lot of other companies out there do sell it.
And one more thing I just want to add for listeners or people or viewers, there's 2 types of 3D printing technology. There's SLM and DLP. So Asiga, Carbon, and Vision Tech, they will use DLP technology, whereas someone like Formlabs uses SLM technology. And people usually look down on SLM because it's a little bit slower, and it doesn't use oxygen to interject layers in between as it's printing. But you can fix a lot of things through software and good hardware design, which is what Formlabs did. But basically, just so you understand, there's two different types of technologies when it comes to 3D printing. And the second thing I want to mention is then we introduced the Rapid Shape.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Straumann. Yeah.
And the Rapid Shape, I think for accuracy, phenomenal system. Straumann has some great promotions out there where they do like material rebates. And again, we're not going to go into pricing. Obviously, it varies for, I guess, the territory you're in or whatever promotion you're on at the time. But we run a Rapid Shape religiously. When we first got it, our whole mindset behind it was, one, the accuracy, the phenomenal support we were getting from our local reps and from Straumann, but then also that it has the automation where it has a like a guillotine blade.
Yes.
That we can print, a couple trays overnight and then come in and we have maybe 60 or 80 models depending on the size ready to go to post process and do it. So we're running a second shift without having the people here, which is a great thing. But then again, not again to go back to being the cheerleader for Formlabs, but when you look at the cost of what a Formlabs costs to purchase and the reduced material cost, again, I could really see in the near future, if they keep on the track that they're going on, laboratories having 10 or 15 Formlabs lined up and then no longer needing the automation, because whether you set 15 machines, right, or you send one big machine, what's the difference? And then people will tell me, wow, well, it's 15 machines you need to service, but there's a lot of redundancies with having multiple machines, right? If you have if
two of them go down, you still have 10 left.
Exactly, whatever. 13. Right? 13.
Yeah.
So I do feel that I'm very excited to see what the industry can bring. I mean, again, and like we said, we've had a lot of different printers here. We've had Haygears in here. In fairness, with Haygears, I think we had them when they were very new to the industry. A lot of people didn't know them. We started off, I think, real strong and excited about it.
Yeah, and then reliability just dropped off.
Right.
We were having issues with models sticking to the plates and things like that. And we tried even Lux Creo. That was another printer that we tried. Envision Techs.
Yeah, so Envision Tech, I feel like, it was originally owned by a gentleman called Al Sablani. Great entrepreneur, a visionary, was doing some great things. The crazy thing is, I don't know if you know the statistics, when you watch Shrek, a lot of the characters in Shrek were printed on Envision Tech.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
how'd you find that out?
So when I worked for Zahn Dental, I actually was having a drink with Al Sablani, the original owner of Envision Tech, and he told me that he's like, printing's been around a long time. Mind you, this was back in, I want to say like 2022, 2023, maybe 2025 at most. But, he was saying, he's like, printing, although new to dental, has been in, just like milling, right, has been in the manufacturing world for much more time than it's actually been in dental. And he goes, these are certain things that we used to do before we got into the dental space. And again, Envision Tech then sold off to Desktop Health. I think Desktop Health initial plan of what they were trying to do in the industry was a great idea. There were some shortcomings there, unfortunately. And I hope to see good things hopefully coming out of the future. I know there was a merger or an acquisition that happened.
Nano Dimensions acquired Desktop.
Right.
Yeah.
So when they went through the Desktop Health acquisition, there was a lot of issues in getting tech support and materials. And mind you, that was coming out of COVID, and there's a lot of things. So again, we're not here to talk about Envision Tech. We don't currently have any more Envision Techs in our facility. I haven't really seen anything exciting coming from them where I would say, hey, I'd go look at it again tomorrow. But yeah, we've had those here too.
Desktop Health has some resins that they released. I think they're more now in the resin business primarily.
Okay.
And they're opening up their resins to be used on third-party printers,
not
just their own printer.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's a way to evolve. And I think, like we mentioned before, the proprietorship in dentistry, it doesn't last a long time.
Right.
You have to open up your products, your services, your software, and then let the technicians, let the clinicians use what they want to use, and you'll do just fine.
Right.
If you make the systems communicate with each other, you're going to do just fine.
I also think that, in my opinion, again, and we're not manufacturers, so I can't really say that my opinion is right, but if I was a printing company today, I wouldn't just look at the hardware, because from doing the sales side of it, hardware has depreciation. Hardware has a recurring tech support cost without necessarily having that recurring income. Again, Desktop Health, touche to them. If you look at Formlabs, absolutely. getting into the resin space associated with improving your printer, I think really makes you a powerhouse in this industry. I know a lot of these other companies private label other materials, but I think really to stay relevant and to see longevity, as fast as we're evolving, you need to be in both spaces. And if I own the company, and I think Formlabs kind of does this, if I own the company, the actual profits off of the actual unit itself, in my opinion, is irrelevant. I want to get my unit in there and then show you how great my material is. So then I can get that reoccurring. It's a residual income, right? It's why I've always done sales or always been an entrepreneur. I didn't want to go somewhere and just work and say, hey, this is my salary. I get my paycheck every week and I'm done. It was always getting that recurring residual income of the sky's the limit. The harder we work, the more I sold, the more we grow the business, the more money we all make.
The printer is a delivery platform.
Absolutely.
It's all about the resin, and it just creates a platform that you can just develop new resins as time goes by and implement them more. I'm excited about 3D printing zirconia in the future.
100%.
Very, very interested to see that. I'm excited to see, Formula's just released that new temporary crown resin, then the new Precision X model resin. We want to see what people do with denture resins in the future, with denture teeth in the future. Right now, there are offerings and there are options. They're just not as aesthetic, not what we're looking for.
We always go back to, and when you talk about printing and write, this all overlays itself, right? So for us, we always stick with Dentsply's printed resin, Lucitone, for the sole purpose of serviceability, right? So currently in the industry, the only two printers that are validated to print that material is the Asiga and Carbon. So we print ours on the Asigas. I do feel that you're going to see in the next year or so either more systems opening up to Dentsply's material, or even more so, more companies understanding the value of making sure that their material is serviceable, right? You look at Stratus's, right? They're printing that one stop, right? It's the teeth and is it the Stratus that does that?
Yeah, Stratus does that when they print the base and the teeth all in one shot. Yeah.
But again, the material is not serviceable. If the patient breaks their denture, you need to reprint it. So I'm excited to see more aesthetic potential of printing long-term temps, or even like you look at Dentsply's PMMA material, which is approved for a final restorative. It's the only in the industry as far as we know. I'd love to see that happen. I think Formlabs is working on something like that with a more long temper.
Anything that can allow us to produce a final product with 3D printing, I think it's beneficial for us. Anything that could allow us to produce final product that's very aesthetic looking.
Aesthetics. Consistent and aesthetic, right? I think printing has come a long way where the aesthetics and the quality are there, right? In the products that are validated, right? So when you're talking about the basis of what we printed for a long time, models, dentures, hard soft night guards, they're there. I can't wait to see in the next year, 2 years of what comes out with more denture based material options, but also like you said, zirconia and another all ceramic.
They're talking about nano ceramics.
Right.
Like a lot of companies are saying that they want to, or they've developed or in the middle of developing resins that have nano ceramics built into them. So something that will give you that aesthetic look.
Absolutely, 100%. And listen, we've all seen it. There's a lot of companies in this industry digitally specifically that have come in and fell out, right? Or were a powerhouse in the industry and then died out. But you have some of the tried and trues,
Before we leave for the day, if you were a practitioner, if you're a dentist and you want to implement 3D printing in your office, what would your approach be? What would you do? What do you think makes sense?
Great question. Yeah. So in my opinion, currently, the only things that really make sense for printing in the industry today or in a practice would be temps and models for clear aligners. And
night guards.
Night guards. Yeah, night guards too. Absolutely don't want to leave that off the thing. When you're looking at the clear aligner aspect of it, I don't see, a lot of ortho liners protocols are coming with, 12 sets or 18 sets of aligners. I don't see the practitioner wasting their time sitting there printing, 24 models. But saying, hey, with AI evolving, with other companies that they can send out the design to get a quick design on the restorative and pay a little higher fee, having the patient there, selling the treatment. Nice thing is now they're showing the patient what their before and afters of the ortho is going to look like. And then once getting approval, getting on like a Formlabs that they can print the model in less than 15 minutes, do a quick suck down and let the patient go home with their first set of aligners while the lab produces the rest of them. And then also the aspect of with intraoral scanning, doing a pre-op scan, getting a quick temporary restorative design, right? A temp shell, and then doing a chairside temp reline. I mean, the conventional way of doing temporaries prior to digital technology, right? You had a couple different ways of it. The doc would use some type of temp material. They would take impression pre-prep, right? They fill it with temp material and then put it over the temp and then have somewhat of a blob and kind of grind it, carve it, right?
I've seen that been there.
I've seen docs freehand it, which is shocking to me. And then also requesting their laboratory to create some type of matrix. I just, in my opinion, in this day and age with digital technology, is scan that pre-op scan. If you don't have a way to print it in the office, send it to the laboratory. Schedule the patient for a day of preparation and have something you can reline. Chair time's valuable. Don't leave them there to make an impression, temporize chair side and then grind on it and lose 2 hours of chair time.
So then do you think it's in order for any chair side solution to be viable for the clinician, do you think you should always pair it with a design service? Yeah,
I think for specifically for printing, absolutely. AI's evolved so much where a lot of, like, for instance, if you have a cerec chairside, their AI for specifically even posteriors or even some anterior work has gotten really good where they can mill single unit restoratives in the office off of what the computer pre-generates. If you're getting into printing, I feel like you either need a very knowledgeable dental assistant that's technique savvy that can at least, stage a model, or have some type of design service that's available to them where they could get the design. And we do quite a few of that for Dr. Stroud.
Design on demand.
They do their hard soft night guard printing in the office. They send us the file, we design it, we send it back to their printer, they print it, and then now they give it to their patient. So I do feel that it needs to be associated with some type of design. When you look at it, again, Sprint Ray has a lot of market share. They did a great job in getting out there and getting the brand to the practitioner. But I honestly do feel because of the safety measures, because of the consistency and the quality and the cost of Formlabs, I think that if practitioners really look into that printer, I think there'll be a lot more 4B systems throughout the industry. And there's three major reasons why. And I'm always looking at the business side of it, right? So I'm saying, where's my fail safes? How do I protect waste of material, right? So like you mentioned with 4BL, right? Or with any form, with the newer Formlabs, it has smart technology where it knows what's in the tank versus what's dispensing, right? The material is self-contained, so you don't have a mess. That the material is very sticky no matter what you're printing, that you're pouring it in and you might drip it on the floor. And then it has its own arm in there to stir up the tray. So there's a lot of redundancies there where you don't have to worry about mistakes happening. So you could reassure that what you're trying to print is actually going to come out.
User-friendly software too. There's 100%. Also a lot on the more technical side. When you set all these models for printing or whatever restorations you're printing, you can have a very complex, overbuilt software. A lot of times they do add-on scripts on existing software, make their own software from scratch. I actually liked EnvisionTech software, which was heavily based on Formlab software.
Absolutely.
That was a very user-friendly software. Obviously, the Preform Formlab software is very user-friendly. And then we've tried others who are just not user-friendly at all. And they go through many iterations. I remember Carbon was pretty average. It was user-friendly. The problem with Carbons we had was generating those support sprues.
Right.
It was just really struggling for a very long time to do that. Well,
so I think, and correct me, you would know this better than I do. Out of all the platforms you used, what was the best automated for support?
It was for me. It was Formlabs.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think EnvisionTech at one point though, you were pretty impressed with theirs as well,
because
too, right?
They were very similar.
Similar. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
That's.
I remember when we had them there. I knew there was a system in there that you're like, look at this.
If you put them side by side,
they're almost identical. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. Again, this is not rah cheerlead for Formlabs. If we see something we really like, we're going to talk about it. And if we sat at this table 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Mulish might still be a little bit Formlabs rah, but I would have been a big advocate for Carbon. Yeah. And it is what it is,
They did. So when we talk on one of our future episodes about milling and dental mills and manufacturing, Formlabs did for dentistry what Roland did for the milling industry.
Absolutely.
That's my comparison.
Yeah. I mean, not to go too much into that, we are going to do a milling.
But
I mean, Roland's were the Honda of the industry.
Yes.
You know, they were workhorses. I do see that Roland, and we'll talk about this in another episode. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I see Roland losing market share over the time because a lot of new innovation that came into the industry for robustness and consistency and quality. But yeah, it's I'm excited to talk about that in a future episode.
Guys, if you have any questions about 3D printing, material choice, what should I use for a particular case? What do you recommend for a particular printer or material? Let us know. Put it in the comments. You can also reach out to our lab, Synergy 3D, but also just reach out to our Synergy Talks podcast. We'll be more than happy to help you out. We like talking about this stuff. And until next time, we'll see you.
Thank you for joining us. And guys, real quick, on the next episode, we're hoping that we're going to have our first chairside episode, but we're still trying to lock in that chairside schedule. Next episode will either be a scanning of a denture chairside, or maybe we'll go into dental milling and milling machines and the great stuff of that. But like Milo said, till next time, please share, tag, like, comment below, ask us questions. Let's get engaged, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
Take care.